April 18th, 2014. Guys, we've had a 6.9 in Papua New Guinea there. Now, the energy is moving across the Pacific that we watched as we started seeing the bombardment from the sun today. Now, we've had a double CME. In other words, we've had another one just behind it, and it's going to give us a double peak on our solar wind speed, our density, the entire gamut. I'll show you that on our charts. Again, we've had quakes up in the top at Alaska. We've had another 5.5 now in what they're calling the Bellamy Island region below Australia. I'll show you that. Now, it's interesting that that quake showed up on the RSOE as the McMurdo Station in the Antarctic, guys. Very interesting place. A lot of history behind the McMurdo Station. There's webcams and stuff that show that. But it's a multinational project there. They do a lot of watching and things like that. The only other quakes you really see mentioned that are large in that area are in the ancient Sumerian texts. This is Wyoming and Idaho. Check the page out. Quite a bit of shaking. Now, it's important to notice the bottom of each graph. That's the current time, and you see that it's picking up a smaller quake. So, but it's telling you that the event is not over. And I'm going to show you again on the CME where this is a double event, but check that out. They definitely have felt the quakes. Also, looking at the ionospheric delay, you see those white hot spots in the center of the Pacific Ocean over Hawaii. That's off the chart. You see the chart on the right goes from 0 to 16, from blue to red. It's off that chart. That's always a time to watch. Now, here on the ACE proton chart, you can see that we went through the peak, but the climb is not over. You see that, guys, on the right? Now, also in this proton chart, you can see the same thing. We're still climbing. In other words, the energy is bombarding Earth. Looking at the latest SDO images, you can see we had the flare, guys, but look at the filament released. It finally left the bottom. As it released, it created a secondary flare. A secondary coronal mass ejection, guys. Check that out. See the first impulse, then the second. Now, the flare tracker has picked up that event also, as well as the flare and the coronal mass ejection that left when it did. Let's take a close look at this. Notice your timestamp. Your flare, it caused a CME, then the filament caused a second CME. That's a lot of energy. They're both Earth-facing. Check that out. Now, I'll show you that on the CME tracker. First, let's look at the electrons. We had that burst earlier today. You see that, guys? But now we're into the 19th. A secondary straight-up burst from the second flare. That's the impulse. Then a couple days later, you get the density. Here comes the density right here. On the video before this, we were using the first CME tracker that came out, and they're an hour difference. That's close enough to have a very good average. Also notice in the bottom chart where it says radial velocity with the green line at Earth, we're going to have a pretty good peak right here. When the second wave hits, look all the way down at both charts. You're going to be going from around 500 kilometers per second to 700 plus. So we're going to be seeing, again, a density increase at the same time of the second CME as we do a radial velocity. That's your solar wind speed. And when they say 700 or just right at 700, I've seen that peak at 850, 900 in one of these events, as well as the plasma density. They're giving you an average. We'll just have to see. These are strong events. We have already seen the impulse of both CMEs cause two quakes. Let's look at the solar disk. Now, for the last few days, we've had the entire area beta gamma. Now, Sunspot 2035 has went beta gamma delta, guys. That is everything you need for strong X flare. And it happens to be the one in the red arrow that's still the closest to being Earth-facing. You see that? Also, proton event, 99% chance. Class X 10, M flare 60. Now, today's a good day, and everyone should be talking about this and reminding everyone that what really happened, it says, now from the 6th hour there was darkness over the land unto the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Guys, that's one of the most misinterpreted verses in the Bible. I've seen preachers from the synagogue of Satan, you can see the darkness of their eyes, preach this sermon at a funeral and say even Christ had doubts. Guys, that's the furthest from the truth. Let's finish this. Some of them that stood there, when they heard that, they said, this man calleth for Elias. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink. The rest said, let be, let us see whether Elias will come to save him. Jesus, when he cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the spirit. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and rocks rent, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. Are you listening? And now when the centurion and they that went him, watching Jesus, saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, truly, this is the Son of God. Now, the Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani at the top, Christ was teaching in his last moments on the cross, the ultimate teacher. And he's going to teach us again in the millennium, guys, 1,000 years. What a great time to look forward to. But let no man ever tell you that Christ doubted. Never let that be said, because what it does when these dark-eyed preachers tell you that, they're trying to put a knife of doubt in your faith. Heads up, be safe.